Here we are introducing Christopher Silver's The Interview.
कौन सी किताब है? इंग्लिश
Class 10th
इंग्लिश
NCRT. Sorry, Class 12th. NCRT is English Planning.
किसकी है?
वो जो आपके क्लास 10th वाले भैया हैं ना उन्हीं का है. तो पहले कुछ वर्ड मीनिंग हम लोग देख लेते हैं. Christopher Silvester, 1959, was a student of history at Peterhouse, Cambridge. He was a reporter of Private Eye for 10 years and has written features for Vanity Fairs. Word meaning. Word meanings. Invention. To make something new, commonplace, general, extravagant, spending a lot of money, unwarranted, unjustified, intrusion, encroachment, diminishes, to make less, primitive, ancient, lionized, treated as an object of curiosity, petitioners, people making requests, amusement, entertainment, condemn, condemnatory, expressing condemnation, offense, an aggressive action, assault, attack, willy, mean, preparated, repented, to commit plunder, contemporaries, belonging to the same time, ethical, relating to the morals, eliminate, to end, interstices, space, elevator, lift, departure, to go, invariably, unchanged, depersonalized, to make less personal, dissertation, a topic written for university degree, dissertation, a topic written for university degree, अनुसंधान लेख, semiotics, a branch of medical science, semental, rudimentary, प्राथमिक. Now the story begins. Following an excerpt taken from Christopher Silvester's Introduction to the Penguin Book of Interviews, an anthology from 1859 to the present day. Part 1. Since its invention a little over 130 years ago, the interview has become a commonplace of journalism. Today, almost everybody who is literate will have read an interview at some point in their lives. While from the other point of view, several thousand celebrities have been interviewed over the years, some of them repeatedly. So it is hardly surprising that opinions of the interview, of its functions, methods, and merits vary considerably. Some might make quite extravagant claims for its as being in its highest form a source of truth, and in its practice an art. Others, usually celebrities who see themselves as its victims, might despise the interview as an unwarranted intrusion into their lives, or feel that it somehow diminishes them. Just as in some primitive cultures, it is believed that if one takes a photographic portrait of somebody, then one is stealing that person's soul. V.S. Naipaul feels that some people are bounded by interviews and lose a part of themselves. Lewis Carroll, the creator of Alice in Wonderland, was said to have had a just horror of the interviewer, and he never consented to be interviewed. It was his horror of being lionized which made him thus repel would be acquaintances, interviews, and the persistent petitioners for its autograph, and he would afterward relate the stories of his success in silence. All such people with much satisfaction and amusement. Rudyard Kipling expressed an even more condemnatory attitude towards the interviewer. His wife, Caroline writes her diary for 14 October 1892 that their day was recalled by two reporters from Boston. She reports her husband as saying to the reporters, "Why do I refuse to be interviewed? Because it is immortal. It is a crime, just as much of a crime as an offense against my person, and as an assault, and just as much merits punishment. It is cowardly and will. No respectable man would ask it, much less give it." Yet Kipling had himself pretended such as an assault on Mark Twain only a few years before. H.G. Wells, in an interview in 1894, referred to them interviewing Ardell, but was a fairly frequent interviewee, and 40 years later around later found himself interviewing Joseph Stalin, Saul Bellow, who has consented to be interviewed on several occasions. Nevertheless, once described interviews as being an thumbprints on his windpipe. Yet, despite the drawbacks of the interview, it is a supremacy serviceable medium of communication. These days, more than any other time, our most vivid impressions of our contemporaries are through interviews. Denny's brain has written almost everything of moment reaches us through one man asking questions of another. Because of this, the interviewer holds a position of unprecedented power and influence. Part second. I am a professor who writes novels on Sundays. Umberto Eco. Following is an extract from an interview. Umberto Eco. The interviewer is Mukund. The interviewer is Mukund Padmanabhan from The Hindu. Following is an extract from an interview of Umberto Eco. The interviewer is Mukund Padmanabhan from The Hindu. Mukund, the English novelist and academic David Lodge once remarked, "I can't understand how one man can do all the things he Eco does." Umberto Eco, maybe I give the impression of doing many things, but in the end, I am convinced I am always doing the same thing. Mukund, which is? Umberto Eco, now that is more difficult to explain. I have some philosophical interests and I pursue them, though my academic work and my novels, even my books for children, are about non-violence and peace. You see, the same bunch of ethical philosophical interests. And then I had a secret. Did you know what will happen if you eliminate the empty spaces from the universe? Eliminate the empty spaces in all the atoms. The universe will become as big as my fist. Similarly, if we have a lot of empty spaces in our lives, I call them interstices. Say you are coming over to my place. You are in an elevator, and while you are coming up, I am waiting for you. This is an an empty space. I work in empty spaces while waiting for your elevator to come up from the first to the third floor. I have already written an article. He laughs. Mukund, not yet anyone can do that, of course. Your non fictional writing, your scholarly work has a certain playful and personal quality about it. It is a marked departure. It is a marked departure from regular academic style, which is invariable, depersonalized, and often dry and boring. Have you consciously adopted an informal approach, or is it something that just come naturally to you? Umberto Eco, when I presented my first doctoral dissertation in Italy, one of the professors said, scholars learn a lot of a certain subject, then they make a lot of false hypotheses, then they correct them, and at the end, they put the conclusions. You, on the contrary, told the story of your research, even including your trials and errors. At the same time, he recognized I was right and went on to publish my dissertation as a book, which meant he appreciated it. At that point, at the age of 22, I understand the scholarly books should be written the way I had done by telling the story of the research. That is why my essays always have a narrative aspect. And this is why probably I started writing narratives novels so late, at the age of 50 more or less. I remember that my dear friend Ronald Barthes was always frustrated that he was an essayist and not a novelist. He wanted to do creative writing one day or another, but he died before he could do so. I never felt this kind of frustration. I started writing novels by accident. I had nothing to do one day, and so I started. Novels probably satisfied my taste for narration. Mukund, talkingly about novels. From famous academic, you went on to becoming speculatory, speculary famous after the publication of The Name of the Rose. You have written five novels against my more scholarly works of non-fictionary, at least more than 20 of them. Umberto Eco. Over 40. Mukund. Over 40. Among them, a seminal piece of work on semiontis. But I ask most people about Umberto Eco, and they will say, "Oh, he is the novelist." Does that bother you? Umberto Eco. Yes, because I consider myself a university professor who writes novels on Sundays. It's not a joke. I participate in academic conferences and not meetings of pen clubs and writers. I identify myself with the academic community. But okay, if most people have read only the novels, love and shrugs. I know that by writing novels, I reach a larger audience. I cannot expect to have 1 million readers with stuff on semiotics. Mukund, which brings me to my next question. The Name of a Rose is a very serious novel. It's a detective yarn at one level, but it also delves into metaphysics, theology, and medieval history. Yet it enjoyed a huge mass audience. Were you puzzled at all by this? Umberto Eco. No, journalists are puzzled, and sometimes publisher. And this is because Journalists and publishers believe that people like trash and don't like difficult reading experiences. Consider there are 6 billion people in this planet. The name of Rose sold between 10 and 15 million copies. So, in a way, I reached only a small percentage of readers, but it is exactly these kinds of readers who don't want easy experiences, or at least don't always want this. I myself at 9 p.m. after dinner watch television and want to see either Miami Vice or emergency room. I enjoy it. I need it, but not all day. Mukund, could the huge success of the novel have anything to do with the phase that it dealt with a period of medieval history that Umberto Eco? That's possible, but let me tell you another story because I often tell stories like a Chinese wise man. My American publisher said, while she loved my book, she didn't expect she didn't expect to sell more than 3,000 copies in a country where nobody has seen a cathedral or studies Latin. So I was given an advance for 300 copies, but in the end it sold 2 or 3 millions in the US. A lot of books have written about medieval past for before mine, far before mine. I think the success of the book is a mystery. Nobody can predict it. I think if I had written the name of the rose 10 years earlier than 10 years later, it wouldn't have time the same. Why it worked at the time it is a mystery. Christopher Silvester. Extra writing. If the interviewer Mukundan Padmanabhan had not got the space in the newspaper to reproduce the interview verbatim, he may have been asked to produce a short report of the interview with silent points. Write the report for him. A teacher should be able to help the pupils in what to include and what can be omitted. We could also provide a short report of an interview as a sample. A professor who writes novel on Sundays. The name of Umberto Eco is well known in literacy circle. Generally, people think that he is a novelist, but he himself admits that he is a scholar first. He has some philosophical interests and pursues them through his academic work and his novels. His books on children are marked by the idea of nonviolence and peace. He finds time he finds time to do so many work in a busy life. His scholarly works have a playful and personal quality in them. They are complete departure from a regular academic style. His famous book, his famous work is The Name of the Rose. He has written over 40 non-fiction in addition to 5 fictions. The Name of the Rose is an intellectual work with the medieval theme. Its huge success is a mystery. His interest includes watching television after dinner. And extra heading is known as things to do. Interview a person whom you are admire either in a school or your neighborhood and record it in writing.